You had your chance and then you blew it.
That is the most absurd statement of the year.
Nice. Nice.
Oh, baby.
I'm in my zone, I'm feeling it.
Live from Rock Solid Studios in Granite Falls, it's time for MinneZona Sports, live with DJ Matty C and Paul the Shield Vold.
And this is MinneZona Sports Live. We are back. Yes, after a 1 week hiatus. It's been, it hasn't been that long. It feels like it's been that long, but, without further ado, I'm your host, DJ Matty C, a.k.a. Matt Callahan, a.k.a. Callie, a.k.a. Matty C, etc., etc., etc. And all the way from Voldy is out, ladies and gentlemen. He's got a couple baseball games to call. Yes, it is that time of the year again, and Zim is a little frustrated. I'm frustrated too. We want Voldy here, but we do have someone who was waiting in the wings, ready to go. We welcome back Matt Metzler. Metz, welcome back to the show. We're going to be talking about your Green Bay Packers. So
oh, great! Just can't wait to talk about them.
I bet you're just thrilled to talk about it, especially with everything that has been going on with Green Bay. But we got some other things to talk about before that. That's coming up for ARA. But tonight we have three Tater Tot hot takes tonight. No special segment. We got a lot to talk about with Tater Tot hot take. Then we're going to move on to ARA. So we got a jam-packed show, really. We got a lot going on tonight. So we're happy to bring it to you, especially for the zoners who are tuning in as well and tuning in later for the show. But it's Vikings, it's Wolves, it's the Twins. So those are our three tonight. But, as always, we like to get things going with a little Tater Tot hot take.
Fresh out of the oven, it's Tater Tot Hot Take.
All right, it is time for Tater Tot hot take. And our first one is going to the purple and gold. We're starting with, there you go, Mets. We're starting with the Minnesota Vikings. And, I know, Mets, this is a tough one for you because, obviously, you're Green Bay and whatnot. But let's get to a couple things here. The Vikings have back the one, the only, Danielle Hunter. Yes, Danielle Hunter is back, ladies and gentlemen. The Vikings have finally got him back for minicamp. He's ready to go. It was a deal that needed to be restructured because, again, Danielle was underpaid, was a little underpaid. I agree with that. Everyone else agreed with that too. Slick Rick found a way, and it worked out for both sides. Here's the deal. If Danielle cashes in, he does a great job this year, Vikings can re-sign him, or they could say, adios, which I hope we don't, because I really think Danielle has been the cornerstone of this Minnesota Vikings defense as well. And I think you have to hold on to that. And I think they'll find a way in the offseason to bring him back. Or if he doesn't perform to expectations, well, then they can release him. But it works out for both sides. I'm glad they got this deal done. Mets, I understand that, from a non-biased Packers perspective, this is a deal that needed to get done because I think like I've said on the show before, Danielle needs the Vikings, and the Vikings need Danielle. It made sense. They got it done. So what are your thoughts on Danielle coming back for minicamp?
I think it's the best move for the Vikings. I personally think that the Vikings needed Danielle more than Danielle needed the Vikings, especially after last year. let's just say the pass rush got to the quarterback a little bit more last year, the Vikings would have more of a leverage. But when your leading sack guy is, playing for a different team half the year, you're not getting to the quarterback, and especially when you got rookie corners, it doesn't usually mean success. We saw that with the Vikings. It definitely makes the Vikings contenders for the division. Until Rodgers says he's not going to play, it's still the Packers division, in my opinion. Okay. But, and we'll talk soon, too, Richardson's another big add, too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you got both sides getting to the quarterback and then have a great wall and on the interior for run defense, you don't need your cornerbacks to do as much or your secondary to do as much, especially when you're getting an older Harrison Smith, who, I mean, he hasn't really slowed down, but you don't want this to be the year he slows down. And, it's going to be, I think, who did they just get from the Cowboys? Xavier Woods, Xavier Woods. Yeah, he'll be the other safety back there. And then you're going to have a rotation with, them just signing Brashad Breeland. He's coming off of surgery. So I think it definitely helps the defense overall, especially having Danielle up front. Because if he can get to the quarterback, it allows other guys to get to the quarterback as well. Because he'll demand a double team on that left side. Or right side, I should say.
Yeah, and really, I think this is something to where they need to look at how they're going to approach the season after this, and I think that's what they're looking at. And I have no doubts that Danielle's going to be ready to go. Now, the one thing that I do kind of want to bring up before we move into the Richardson signing, because we got a lot to talk about here tonight, but I just feel like the Vikings could have been a little bit more, how would I put this? A little bit more open to explaining what the deal was with Danielle when he was hurt. I think a lot of it factored into, not be saying that we don't know if he'll be back. We don't. It's like, why don't you just give us something cut and dry? Listen, this is where we're at with Danielle. We don't think he's going to play. Whereas Zim kind of said it was a little tweak. Well, it turned out to be more than a little tweak, which, again, it depends on how you interpret it, but I feel like the Vikings could have just said, okay, he had a bad injury, and he's probably not going to play the rest of the year. Would you rather have
Vaughn say it was an upper body injury?
What would you say that again?
Like how in hockey they always say upper body injury, lower body. Would you rather him say it's an upper body injury, he's out the rest of the year?
Right, right. I feel like it's one of those things where they have to look at this and say there's something wrong with this situation, and obviously you don't want to mess around with a herniated disc. Any neck injury is something you don't want to mess with. But then again, maybe they didn't know. I don't know. But let's fast forward a little bit, and yes. The thing is well, why should we be giving him another extension when, we already given him one, and he was hurt last year. Well, there's that to factor in too, but this is a situation where you have to trust the guy that you have. Last year, our leading sack guy, and I think Mets, you could attest to this too, was Yannick Ngakoue. Ngakoue was our top sack leader for a while. Now, why in the world would the Vikings not want a guy like Danielle back? Is he vastly underpaid? Yes. I've been praising Danielle ever since he came to Minnesota. Andre Patterson has done a phenomenal job with him. Zim's done a phenomenal job with him. I mean, the guy's a beast. You look at him physically, he's ready to go. Absolutely ready to go. And this is going to help the pass rush. And the question is, what are you going to do on the other side of Danielle? Because there's really, DJ Wanham, yeah, he's got some potential. Maybe he will break out. But then again, maybe you have to look at a veteran presence. And, I'm not ruling it out of the question. Maybe he's lost a step or two. But Everson, Is that possible? Sure, I think that's possible if they wanted to go that route. But again, it's the question of, is Danielle going to be fully healthy, ready to go? And I think he will be, and I think he's been working his tail off. Now, if he has a really good year, then yeah, you got to pay him. I mean, it's that simple. But if you don't want to pay that type of money that he's asking, then you'll have to release and then start from scratch. And I don't think they want to start from scratch. That's probably the last thing I want to do. They need someone on the outside, and that we can rely on for years to come. So I think they'll work something out. I think, it's water under the bridge of what, he was liking tweets of him being traded and things like that. But I think they'll figure something out to where after the season, depending on how far they go and how the season goes, to keep Danielle in Minnesota. So, but
well, and you also have to look too. You got Weatherly coming back. The Vikings just re-signed him. He's going to be back on the other side. And then, two, Vikings fans are going to make the argument. Well, we just signed him to extension, and you make the counter, or you make the argument too. He's underpaid. Look at the market that defensive ends or defensive, front four are demanding right now. Donald's a $20 million a year guy. Clowney, who, if he would have stayed healthy and kept on going, he would probably be that. It's just like, Kirk Cousins could be in a couple of years, he's making $30 million. That could be, him, that could be below average salary. It just all depends on what the market demands.
Yeah.
Whether a guy is worth that money if he's underpaid or overpaid.
Right. And, it's kind of like a prove it year in a way, just to say, do you still have it? And I think he does, and I believe he does. I think he's been a huge proponent of that. And looking at the defense right now, it's looking damn good. I mean, it is really looking much better. It doesn't look like a team that's going to get run over with 6 touchdowns against the Aints. For now, they have to perform. I mean, you and I know they have to perform. So yeah. Yeah, so but I don't know if you wanted to add more onto that, but
it's true. It's you got guys that are coming back that have a full year under their belts, even though with the whole Gladney situation, you don't know what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, that's a big
go
one,
into that, and just because there's so much legal stuff that has to be done with. I mean, Dantzler, I don't think he's going to make the same mistakes he made last year, especially in that Seattle game when Paul Allen had a great call as a not Vikings fan, just listening to that. Yeah. But I mean, you got a lot of guys that with a little bit more experience under their belts, and it's gonna be the offensive turn. Can they keep up with what they did last year?
Right, and that's the big thing. And then also think about this. Is Irv Smith going to be the guy to, to take over for Rudolph? And obviously Rudolph, was kind of more of the red zone threat, but I think they want to stretch the field a little bit because a lot has changed. I mean, with tight ends, they're more versatile now, so got to factor that in too. For offensive reasons. All right, we got a zoner chiming in. Cole Munson, yes, we are going to get to your Wolves in a second about the preposterousness of Ant not winning Rookie of the Year. What are your thoughts on running large 3-4 with Richardson signing, having Barr and Hunter as outside linebackers? Mets, what do you think?
It all depends. Is Barr actually going to transform into that, rushing the quarterback kind of player? He's always been the spy in Zimmer's defense. He's always been keeping an eye on the quarterback. He's never been a guy that's always rushed. But does it play into, with them getting Tomlinson too? Like, are you just going to rotate those guys, or do you want to keep 2 defensive tackles in?
Yeah.
It could work. It's just the way the Vikings off season has gone that they still want to stick to that 4-3.
Yeah. They're not going to change it now, and I mean it would be one hell of a change if they did it now. I feel like it's something to where they need to they need to go with what they know, and the big thing is like when you're changing schemes, it's not always going to. It's the best word to describe it. It's not going to come out as you think. It's not going to mesh right away. And if that's the case, and they can pull it off, then sure. But, like, at the same time, I just feel like you stick with what you know. And it's worked. And it has worked. The thing is now that you have not only you started off with two big bodies, right? You started off with two big bodies, Pierce, Tomlinson. Now all of a sudden you add Richardson into the fold. How do you rotate these guys in there is the big thing with the 4-3. Now, I think you obviously go with Pierce as the nose tackle, kind of the Linval role, as people would put too, and then you would probably just go Tomlinson because a little bit more versatile. Not saying that Pierce isn't. I mean, I think you got three guys in there that know how to play some defensive tackle. So I think it's going to work out fine. Now, but for a 3-4, I feel like some of these guys wouldn't know how it would work. Not saying Danielle wouldn't, but I just feel like Danielle as more of an outside linebacker, I wouldn't be a huge fan of. And Barr being kind of an edge rusher, I'm not fully against. I'm just saying it's a different transition. It's a different transition. I think, how Zimmer's used Barr in the past has worked pretty well, coming in on blitzes and things like that. But maybe it's an experiment of him throwing it.
And to change things up, too.
Yeah.
Zimmer's always been a guy that keeps the same thing going. He's never one to change anything up.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's out of the question. I'm just saying it's going to take a lot of time to adjust. If you go into training camp and say we're moving to a 3-4, we might have issues. I think in mini camp, that's when you start saying, hey, guys, this is what it's going to look like come the season. But I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be totally against it.
In person, OTAs too. It's been tough the last couple of years with COVID and stuff like that. Just getting everybody there because it's going to take pretty much the whole offseason if you're going to change from a 4-3 to a 3-4.
Exactly. So let's get to Richardson, then we're going to move on to this Rookie of the Year BS. But Richardson, the Vikings finally get Richardson. Obviously, it's been heating up these past couple of days, and all of a sudden they get it done. I'll start off with this here because I think this is a really good signing. This is something to where we have depth at defensive tackle. We have, linebacker depth is a little different. I feel like we could maybe sign a guy or two. I mean, there's enough cap room right now, $15 million. But adding Sheldon Richardson, who's actually been in this defense before, only for 1 year, but I think this is something that the Vikings are going to. I'd pat if I were Rick Spielman, I'd be patting myself on the back on getting him in as well. Not saying Sheldon is completely just he won't make a. He's not going to get like 10 sacks. Okay, the guy's good. He's something that can. He's a good run stopper. He's versatile, and I think that's going to help. Not only help with Pierce, but Tomlinson as well. Rotating these three guys in there is going to help, and also prevent teams from scoring 6 touchdowns on a JV squad. Okay, and this doesn't look like that JV squad in New Orleans, that's for sure. But the defensive line is looking so much stronger with Danielle coming back, Sheldon Richardson being added into the mix. And also, in the draft, Patrick Jones, another guy who's been very good, Jadarius Robinson. And don't forget, DJ Wanham. Okay, DJ Wanham's another guy that I think can play well for, the Vikings. Now, I obviously, if this is absurd or true, I give it my stamp of approval. But this is something where the Vikings needed to add, depth, and they took an opportunity. And honestly, it didn't cost them anything, almost like a zilch, So it's a great signing. I think it's going to work out well. So Mets unbiased opinion on this.
Another unbiased opinion would be, it's a great signing. You look at your two before signing Richardson, you look at your two starting defensive tackles. They were both run stoppers. They're not necessarily guys that are going to get to the quarterback, from the inside area. Whereas, Sheldon Richardson is more known as a pass rushing defensive tackle. So if you mix him in, say, like you throw Richardson and Tomlinson in on like second down where it could be a run or a pass, at least you're covered that way. It's kind of protects you instead of having both two run stoppers. You can have a mix, and then just in case they do try to throw something at you, offensive for the other offense, you're safe that way. So it's a good signing. There's still one area the Vikings still could improve on with that free agency, with some of that free agency money, but it's hard to get at this point of the year, you won't get some good talent until after training camp.
Where's that, though? Where's that?
Offensive line.
Well, yeah, I think we talk about it enough. You can't have enough offensive line.
No.
Yeah.
No, and we're at a point, too, is you're not going to really see big names signing that are free agents right now. You're not going to see them until training camp where the guys get hurt or guys get cut. So you're kind of at a downside to free agency right now because the teams are kind of set. They're going to be like, okay, these are our guys going to training camp. Let's see what they do. If something comes up, you'll see more signings.
Right. And yeah, like you said, there's plenty of time, so we'll see what happens with it. So, all right, Mets, it's time to get to the almost. I mean, it's fairly breaking news. I mean, it happened about 4:00 today. We found out that, most of us found out. I think some people are kind of shocked. They're like, wait, they announced the Rookie of the Year already? LaMelo Ball wins Rookie of the Year for this NBA season. It's a shock. I honestly think it's a shock. And I'm not saying that LaMelo Ball was a terrible player or anything like that, because he was very good. He was damn good. And this is reportedly, but this is from Woj, and Woj is not a guy that just doesn't throw anything out there and just think, oh well, maybe it says that he knows what he's doing is basically what he's saying, but the lack of, I feel like this is something to where you're just only adding on to the Ball clown show. Okay, and the reason why I say the clown show, and I'm just saying from the perspective of a LeVar type of deal where all of a sudden you're sucking up to the whole hype around this. Now, I think this is absolutely asinine that Anthony Edwards did not win the Rookie of the Year. It pisses me off. But Mets, before I get into it, let's get your thoughts first. Your thoughts on Ants not winning Rookie of the Year?
I mean, it's a toss-up. You could say either one. Really was one more deserving than the other. Yes and no. You could say, well, Ant deserves it more because he played the whole season, which I was really surprised at seeing the stats. He played all 72 games this year. I think he might have been the only Timberwolf to do that. And I watched my fair share of Timberwolves games more for the comedic effect, just because, just see how they lose this time. But, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised. I've never been big on Towns, but I think Ant is a guy that they can build around. I truly believe that. I mean, obviously his defense has got to step up. I mean, if he's putting up these numbers, averaging 19.3 points per game as a rookie, that's pretty good. I mean, I believe that was the lead for rookies. I mean, LaMelo only averaged, 17, I think, points, or 15 points, a game, close to 16 points a game for per game for the Hornets. And, the argument could be made, well, LaMelo, with the Hornets, they were more of a playoff team than what the Timberwolves were, which pretty much any team is more of a playoff team than the Timberwolves are. Yeah. But, I mean, Ant had some good numbers, 19 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, or nearly 3 assists, and he's an off-the-ball, guard. He's not going to be dishing the ball out like a point guard like what LaMelo is. But, I mean, everybody wasn't sure who the first pick was going to be. A shooting guard coming out of Georgia. Georgia's not really that big of a college basketball, school, so nobody knew for sure what you were going to get with them. And knowing how the, Timberwolves have had first overall players. It hasn't always gone great, but he was the shining spot on what was another disappointing year. I guess I would, if you didn't give it to Ant, you could have given it to LaMelo. I think it could have easily been, a co-rookie of the year. I don't think necessarily Ant got robbed, but I definitely think like of course I didn't see what the voting was too, but he definitely had enough year to deserve at least being rookie of the year.
Well, I think the biggest issue that I have with this is why in the world are they giving it to somebody who didn't play even the full season? Okay, now 72. Ant played 72 games, all 72. 19 points per game. And we're not just going just by points here, too. Okay? Now, Ant, with him being so versatile, and yes, okay, LaMelo had more assists. Yes, LaMelo had more rebounds. Yes, LaMelo had a better field goal percentage, okay? But if the reason why there's a big difference is because Ant played more games. LaMelo got hurt. Now, and that's not LaMelo's fault that he got hurt. I mean, obviously that's, but I thought from the perspective of winning Rookie of the Year and being able to be healthy, and yes, the Hornets were a better team than the Wolves. I get that, but Anthony Edwards trumps all of that, okay? And that's not just because he had flashy dunks. That's not because he had, But think about this. D'Lo was hurt for a good chunk of the year. Cat was hurt, too, and dealing with, COVID and whatnot. So please explain to me how Ant doesn't deserve Rookie of the Year because he did a lot for the team as a 19-year-old. Not saying LaMelo didn't. I'm saying LaMelo has more around him than the Wolves do. And the thing is Ant put more of the load on his back in order to get to where they want to go. Okay? So that's my spiel on it. The reason why I think it's completely absurd, if this was absurd or approved, but I think he got robbed. And if anyone disagrees with me, if any of the zoners disagree with me, please spew what you guys think too. I'm just saying that Anthony Edwards 100% deserve it to win Rookie of the Year. Okay. Now I'm not going to sit here and go through stats and everything like that. But if you were watching the Wolves this past season, and you've seen what Ant has done, I think it's a no-brainer. Now, the issue is that this voting, whoever votes, is it the players that vote on this Mets? Do we know, or is it just writers
I think it might be coaches?
Coaches, really?
Because I don't know if fans, and it's never 100% fan vote. It's probably like maybe 25% fans. Because I don't remember ever seeing like a ballot. It could be coaches and other players, and maybe that was it too. It's players, coaches, and executives are the ones voting on this. I think I agree. Anthony Edwards deserved it, but at least he should have gotten Rookie of the Year. Because you can't tell me that if Anthony Edwards didn't play this year, the Timberwolves would maybe won 10 games this year. I believe that because with all the injuries that would happen, we never had a cohesive team that we all played 50, like a third, fourth, maybe, or half the games this year. We just never had that.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that he played 110% every game. He didn't care. He was smiling. I think it was one of the last games of the year. He missed a buzzer beater, and he was just so upset with himself because he's competing. He knows this isn't going to be a team that's going to win right away, but he's still having fun playing the game. And
I look at this too, and obviously I can hoot and holler about it, but I don't think you can sit here and say, well, I mean, it's just a trophy, yeah. But I mean, for years to come, they're just gonna be like, oh my gosh, LaMelo Ball, he's so good, in his rookie season. It's like all of that's almost completely forgotten with Edwards, and that's kind of what pisses me off. Is like he should be reconciled for how well he played as a rookie. I mean, I mean, he should be. I mean, there should be so much. There's so much to know with Ant and what he did this rookie season. He did a lot. And yes, the Wolves are terrible. We get that. But just Ant in general, it's rookie of the year. It's not rookie team of the year or best rookie on the team. Obviously, he was the best rookie on the team. But, there are a lot of reactions here, too. The Wolves on Twitter put LOL. Cat had 3 cry laughing emojis. Edwards actually had like a quote retweet to kind of like pump himself up for his sophomore season, and I think he's going to do that. He's going to kick ass and take names. So that's kind of the nice thing about that. But then again, whatever. Buy into the whole LaMelo Ball family deal. I'm sure we'll hear from LeVar soon enough, but. Again, I think Ant got robbed, so that's just my spiel on it.
It goes back into last year, too. It was the debate whether it was, Ja Morant or Zion. And it was in that case last year that obviously Ja Morant won it. And you could say, well, Zion had a better season. Statistically wise, you kind of sense that maybe Zion was maybe the better player. But Ja played the whole year, and he put up great numbers, and he got the Grizzlies in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, last year was the case of a guy who played more games got it, but this year it was the guy that played less games, that was maybe on a little bit better team, got it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't agree with it, but whatever. We'll move on. That's kind of what we do here. Minnesota can't have nice things, really much of anything like that anymore. But, speaking of not having nice things as well, a certain team by the name of the Minnesota Twins, and this doesn't surprise me, it doesn't surprise you. I was reading an article from Star Trib by none other than Lavelli Neal, the first Pollard pocket protector. No, just kidding. We like Lavel, but... The Twins are obviously the other night they get whooped by the Mariners, 10-0, 11-0, whatever the hell it is. I really don't care. The Twins are 26-41, or now 26-42. I would think now, and then they lose to Seattle. Seattle's not that good, but then again, it is what it is. People are thinking the Twin season's already over. And Mets, I said this on Twitter not too long ago, and I think this needs to be put into fruition. But Baldelli needs to be fired. Yeah, I said it on Twitter. I said Baldelli needs to be fired. This is abysmal. I've said it on Someone Help Twins Pitching not too long ago. This is very disappointing, and it's inexcusable. It's inexcusable. And there's a lot of factors that lead into this, but for them being the record that they are right now is unacceptable, especially after what happened last year and, getting their wish and not having to play the Yankees, playing the Astros, and they weren't a team that wasn't very good, and they lost to them. And that's frustrating as hell. And, it just shows how bad this team has been this year, not only this year, but how they've handled deals as well. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. But Mets, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this, so why don't you rattle off what your thoughts on this abysmal start, and I'll have you answer the question. Is the season already over for the Twins?
Well, I saw a stat. It was about a month ago. It was, no team that has lost 25 games in their first 38 made the playoffs. And that was on May 16th.
Yeah.
So the question was, are the Twins going to do something no one's ever done before? Or was the season over May 16th? And I think you can make the argument that it was over May 16th. The Twins, you look at just them playing the Mariners, they're 1-4 against a team that's been no-hit twice this year. I mean, it's ridiculous. They're also 1-3 against the Rangers, who's been no-hit twice. They're close to 500 against the Indians, who have been no-hit twice.
Yeah.
You know, it's our back end of our rotation just hasn't done anything good. I said going into this year, before they signed Colome, before they re-signed Cruz, they might lose 90 games this year because I didn't think they added enough in the offseason. I knew that Happ and Shoemaker weren't ideal 4 and 5s, and I'm like, okay, well, they signed those two guys, they'll be wild card contenders. No, I was right in my original prediction. They're probably going to lose 90 games.
Yeah.
I saw a stat the other day that the Twins have spent $13 less million this year than what they were going to do pre-COVID last year. So Polettes probably thought they lost money last year, which we know they didn't because TV contracts and them making the playoffs. They did not lose money.
Yeah.
Baldelli's just getting in his own way. I'm not saying he needs to be fired, but he's just getting in his own way. The analytics, yes, they do work in the long run, but when you're in a game situation, they don't always work. Best way you can summarize that is being 2-8 in extra innings this year and starting off 0-8. When you have a guy on second with nobody out, you gotta bunt. I much rather trust a guy putting him over on third because we've seen before where other teams have done it. They get a guy over on third base with one out, and the pitcher spikes one in the dirt. Guy comes home on a wild pitch. It's happened before where Twins have had a guy on second with one out, guy spikes in the dirt, and he's like, well, this guy could be scoring right now. But no, he's still standing on third because we couldn't get him over. It's too much trust that we can hit the ball out of the park. You can also make an argument with coaching decisions, too. We lost James Rosen, who was our hitting coach in 2019. He left for, I think he went to Miami after when, I can't think of his name for Pittsburgh's head coach. He left, or the manager, he left. Twins and Rosen left. And I think that's made much of a difference because I don't see where this team's hitting the ball as well as they have in the past. Although you can make the argument, yes, they're leading the league in home runs, but how many of them have been solo home runs? We've had games where we scored 4 runs. All of them have come off the home run ball. Mm-hmm. It's tough to win your division 3 years in a row. You can maybe use the excuse. It's tough. Very few teams ever win their division 3 years in a row. Yankees, yes. I mean, Braves in the 90s, yes. They ran those divisions. I go back to 2019. Our window was open in 2019. We traded for Sam Dyson at the trade deadline. That's all we did to improve our team. Sam Dyson's mostly known for giving up the home run to Jose Bautista that caused Rougned Odor to punch him in the face the next year. I remember sitting there watching, like, what are we doing? Why are we not trading for anybody? Syndergaard was available at the time.
I'm thankful.
I was in favor of them giving up Buxton because, again, he was injured. That we could have gotten some for him that year, and then throwing either Kirilloff or Lewis, and we could have gotten Syndergaard, and we would have had Syndergaard for 2 more years because he's still under contract. He was available. I don't know if that's what it would have taken to get him. The Mets. It's the Mets. You don't know what their front office. But that would have been a guy to go after, and then that's the only move we did. And we've always tried to patchwork the back end of our bullpen because it's worked.
Always.
It's worked with Phil Hughes for 1 year, so they seem to think that this pattern seems to work every time, and it doesn't. And this year, it finally bit us in the you-know-where. It's just, I'm not saying Baldelli needs to be fired, and you can make the argument he can. It's tough to fire a coach after 2 years of winning the division, having success. But I think it's also too is a testament to what his baseball managerial skills are because he's always had success. But what is your managerial approach when you're not having that success? He's never really had to deal with that.
Yeah.
And he's not a fiery guy. TK was fiery in his own way. Gardenhire obviously was a fiery manager.
Yeah, it depends.
You don't really see that with Baldelli. And let me ask you this question.
Yeah, sure.
What's more embarrassing, losing 18 straight playoff games or because the Twins won't probably make the playoffs this year, not winning a playoff game in 18 years.
I think it's equal, to be honest with you. If you there's a lot of pain within this, and the fact that they can't figure this out, and hell, I'm just gonna let me say this again. Until the Twins are willing to spend money and willing to make deals, significant deals. I'm not saying go out and get a guy that was good 5 years ago, as Voldy likes to say here on this show. Until they are willing to spend money to get guys that can make a difference on this team, that, like a Trevor Bauer, another issue that they had. He's right now pitching well for the Dodgers. You could have thrown money at him for this. Now, here's where I get a little frustrated, is that when these opportunities arise, they say, oh, we tried like hell to get them. Mets, you gave me a stat just before the show. You want to give me that stat on how much money they spent in the offseason?
So going in pre-COVID, they were going to spend $140 million in payroll.
Yep.
They spent $127 million in payroll this year. And before you go on your thing too, San Diego, same kind of market, same kind of payroll. They actually increased theirs by about $50 million.
By $50 million. And there's no salary cap, Mets, as we said on multiple occasions. I can't tell you how frustrating it is to go in and day out and know that we have owners that just sit there and hold on to their money. And they say there's no issue. There's no issue. There's no issue with money. Then why the hell don't you spend it? Why the hell don't you spend it? When you have all this money, you're on the Forbes list, you're worth billions of dollars, no salary cap, and you do not take that leap to get guys. You don't let the GMs do their job. And then you go on the sabermetrics and analytics with these coaches. Stop with that BS, because it doesn't work. It is proven that it has not worked. And it all comes down to the greedy Polat. Okay? This is why we can't have nice things. This is why we can't have nice things. Now, I get the Donaldson deal, but I've always said this. I'll keep saying it. It's pitching. They need to get pitching. Starting pitching, relief pitching, a closer. They can't seem to hold on to those types of guys. Hence why you said they've lost so many games in the playoffs and, haven't had a playoff win. And who the hell knows how long. So there's that to factor in as well.
Can I ask you one more question?
Yes.
What kind of owner does it show you when we can't even remember when the last time we see a Polat at a Twins game?
That is a very good point. When have you seen that at a Twins game? That is just absolutely absurd in belief, because they don't give a rat's ass. I'm sorry for cussing on this, but it's true. They don't care. They don't care. And I hate to say it, and I hate to go off on this rant all the time, but it's true, and it's frustrating. The reason why they're at this point right now, and yes, I'm not saying it's all on Baldelli, but he's so, he's like, let me read a quote, and then we're going to move on to ARA, because I'm already getting a headache just talking about this. We do have a lot of games left, said Baldelli in the article right here, okay? Do we have a lot of games left to prove what we're going to be as the season goes on and the direction that we're going to take the rest of the season? I don't know how many games left we have for that. We have a lot to prove, and we don't have the entire season to prove it. Well, it's time to. Right now, and if you go into the trade deadline being sellers, then it shows me you're done. You're done. And does and Mets? I think we're thinking. You're thinking, does he deserve to be fired? Probably not at this point. But I believe that he needs to be. The reason why is because he has messed up a lot of games. He's lost us a lot of games. Okay. Now we had an opportunity to keep Barrios in the game against the Astros, but Baldelli took him out. Colome, keeping him in the game for how long? He has been a terrible game manager, time in and time out. But if something changes, maybe it's just that the guys aren't performing, guys are getting injured. Yes, injuries have happened with this team, but we need to understand that this team does not and will not spend money unless the Pohlads sell the damn franchise. Now, how are you going to win? How are you going to beat, for that matter, how many times are you going to get your asses kicked by the Yankees? Okay? And we just had a series with those guys. And then you have a little walk-off win. Oh, great, good for you. But they still own you. And the thing is that every time we go against the Yankees, they kick our ass. It's that simple. It's that simple. And
biggest moment of the year was avoiding a sweep by the Yankees. That's been the biggest moment.
Yeah, exactly. Avoiding a sweep, exactly. So it's embarrassing, and you know what? I'm sick and tired of it, and a lot won't change with this team. So that's just my rant for the night. I had to go off on this. It's just ridiculous every time we're hearing about it. But I'm glad we're in the same boat as this is an absolute abject failure right now for the Twins. And if they don't turn it around, they're screwed.
Failure is the motto for this year.
Say that again?
Total system failure is the motto for this year.
Bingo. Exactly. So, all right, let's move on. Mets, we got another interesting bit for you here. But, yeah, no special segment this week. We're moving in right into ARA, but the first ARA is a good one. It's time to talk about, obviously we're not going to fully get into it. Obviously there's been so many updates with this story with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers and everything like that. But we got to get Mets' take on it, so let's get it going with absurd or approved.
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Absurd or Approved.
All right, folks, it is time for Absurd or Approved. And as you can see in the lower third, it's called Complicated Fella. Oh, Mets, I'm sure this has been tough on you. And, you know, I would say I'd feel your pain, but I'd be lying because I really don't. Especially for all Packer fans in that genre as well. And I am talking to Ryan Coombe as well on this instance. But let me preface it by saying this, okay? You know, obviously we understand the Aaron Rodgers situation. We've talked about it on the show. Mets, you've heard us talk about it on the show a lot. But Mark Murphy made some comments about Aaron Rodgers. And people, I mean, I would assume some Packer fans, you know, I should say most Packer fans, are kind of concerned about this. And, you know, it's interesting that the Packers president would say something like this, especially in the situation that they're in. So, but there's one former Packer player that is saying, pump the brakes, don't read much into it. I talked to X, Y, and Z, and that person being James Jones. I don't know how you can take him at his word most of the time. He did call the Danielle thing, saying he's going to report to minicamp, which is good news, but again, still a Packer. So, Mets, let me ask you this, because this is something that needs to be addressed. Absurd or approved, Mark Murphy's comments about great one, I should say, Aaron Rodgers. Go.
Is it too much to ask? You know, have the Twins have a good summer, have the Packers have a quiet offseason? Is that just too much to ask? Apparently it is. You know, I trust James Jones. You know, he's he's plugged into the Packers. Yes, he does show his bias on NFL Network.
Money bias.
He does have his intertwined. He is connected with Rodgers, and he's trying to provide, because all you hear in the media is just it's not really anti Aaron Rodgers, but it's just Greg Jennings, Jermichael Finley, he's a bad teammate, he's not a good teammate, not a good guy. But I mean, it just gives you a different perspective. Hearing this from Murphy, does it help anything? No. Does it hurt? Possibly Rodgers going back? Maybe. It's Murphy just. I think he knows what he's trying to do. He's trying to portray Rodgers as the villain in this, and that the organization has tried. They're doing their best. They're putting their best foot forward. But he doesn't even need to comment on it. Like, yes, it was probably asked, and he does a monthly chat with fans where they do a Q&A, and he, and obviously when you're talking with the president / CEO of the Packers, you're gonna have that question asked multiple times. And frankly, I can't wait till the shareholder meeting this year, because I know Murphy and Goody are gonna get booed out of the stadium, because a lot of Packers fan knows it's them. They're the ones probably driving this story much more than Rodgers, because Rodgers said he wanted to keep this low key. He didn't want it to break out. He wanted it to happen behind closed doors. But I don't like the fact that he included Ted Thompson in this quote. Like, he's saying that Ted Thompson used to call him, a complicated fellow, which, if you've watched Aaron Rodgers on Pat McAfee's show, I wouldn't say he's a complicated guy, but he's definitely out there. Like, he's a guy that plays in UFOs. He's just an interesting guy. I wouldn't say he's a complicated guy, but he's a pretty interesting guy. Like, he's got his own things going for him, and I had no issue with him going to Hawaii. Friend's wedding, I think, is what it was, that he was having a good trip. He doesn't, and he's going into his 17th season as a Packers starting quarterback. Does he really need to be there for all the offseason stuff? No. But I'm just so sick of this.
I can tell. I can tell.
I'm commenting. He's a Packer until he's not a Packer. I'm not going to read too much into it. Once he leaves, he leaves. Okay, that's fine. I hate the comparison. This is just like with Favre. Favre did not want to be with the Packers. His mind wasn't 100% on being there. Rodgers said if given the right situation, he would be back 100%. He loves LaFleur, which people always thought he had a problem with LaFleur. He loves the fan base. He loves, just the whole thing about the Packers, except for the front office organization. That's where he drew the line. You saw that in Kenny Mayne. He said he liked everything about the Green Bay except for the organization.
And it was pretty evident too, and I think it made sense from the perspective of where he was going with it. And the one thing that I think I mentioned this before, but the one thing that I disagree with Rodgers on, I don't think he was being truthful on, it had something to do with the Jordan Love pick too. I think there was something there that kind of set him over the edge a little bit. Not saying, and he did say it's nothing against Jordan. We work together well and everything like that. Like, he's a good guy, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, that would irk somebody too, because it's very similar to the Rodgers-Favre situation too. Green Bay saying, well, this is who's going to be your replacement, in a way. Now, it's different in some aspects and whatnot, but I think, like you said, it's the Green Bay organization. And the comments that Murphy made, from the perspective of an unbiased opinion, it's absurd. During this situation, you should not have opened your mouth and said what you said, calling Rodgers a complicated fella. Now, Ted Thompson, obviously this is coming from Ted Thompson and everything like that. You put yourself in a crappy situation right now between Rodgers and yourself. And obviously you guys are on two different wavelengths. Now, and the zoners can chime in too, just feel free. But the one thing that's frustrating that I think for Green Bay fans is that this guy has been the franchise, the face of the franchise. But you're not giving the face of the franchise, what I think he does deserve in most ways because he is that talented. Now, from a Vikings fan perspective, this is music to our ears, which is true. I mean, the different in ways that you put it. I mean, it's true. I mean, I'm not sitting here complaining about this whole situation because I don't need to, but just from a general sense, I think it goes on both sides. It's the organization and also it's Rodgers, and Rodgers is not, he's no saint either, and I think you would agree with that too, Mets. But this doesn't help the cause. And, I think the big question is can this be revived? And people think, there might be a chance it could. X, Y, and Z. It could. It very well could. We don't know. But from this standpoint, Mets, the question I asked you is this: is Aaron Rodgers in 2021 going to be a Green Bay Packer and start Week 1 for the Packers? What do you think?
Yes, he will start Week 1 as a Packer. I've said since.
Hold on to that audio.
Yeah, save it for preposterous statement or absurd statement of the year. No, I don't really even call it absurd because it's either he is or he isn't. It's one of those things. I think he will just because of the fact that he's still, his heart is still in Green Bay. He's still got a lot of connections too. He still owns the Bucs, which I'm surprised he hasn't been to a playoff game for the Bucs, and maybe that's just his way of still trying to stay away, not trying to draw too much controversy. But and I think it's also the organization's not really sabotaged him at every point because they have tried to put pieces around him. Everybody says, well, they haven't drafted a wide receiver for him in the first round. Well, no, but a lot of our top wide receivers over the years have been, second, third round. I mean, Devontae was a second round. Jordy was, I think, a third or fourth round. He's had some weapons at his disposal. But, I mean, you look at when they let go of Alex Van Pelt as QB coach, he wasn't a fan of that because he thought he should have had a say in that because he would have had his QB coach's back. He comes out and says at the end of spring or of training camp saying that, I think Jay Kumaro is going to have a big part in our offense this next year. The next day he gets cut. It seems like they're kind of like trying to get him out of there by doing some of these moves just to upset him a little bit, make him want out. At times, and defense, he's had 3 top 10 defenses his whole career. Look at all his playoff games, he's had to score probably 30 to 40 points a game.
X amount of points, right? So
sorry,
yeah,
it is absurd that Murphy made those comments. I didn't get to.
No, it's all good. But no, I think we got the gist. That's the main thing. And Munson was saying it here too. I mean, even if it's true, you never say it. It's a PR nightmare.
Yep.
So why the hell did you say it? That's the kind of the big thing. I don't know. It's definitely not helping the cause. That's for sure. And but I'm going to answer the question that I asked you. I don't think he does Week 1. I don't think he does. And the reason why I don't think he does is because I think he's going to try to force their hand. And I think right now, there's no movement on him. There's like zero, none whatsoever. And maybe, we don't know, maybe he will. He'll surprise people and say, screw it, I'm just going to play one more year, and then anything's on the table after that, depending on how the season goes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But this comes down to him trying to mend these bridges, and he has stood firm against Green Bay, and Green Bay has, admirably done the same and saying, no, we're not trading you. This is what we, you are a part of this plan. But LaFleur doesn't know what's going on. He's hoping he comes. He's hoping he comes to training camp. But maybe, I don't think Rodgers needs training camp at this point. Remember, think about Favre. Think about Favre for a little bit here. And Favre came in with the Vikings and was just fine, without training camp or anything like that. So maybe that's the route he goes. But it depends on the situation.
And he said last year too, without when it was virtual only, the OTAs and then the mini camp was all virtual. He said his arm never hasn't felt felt better, or did feel better than any other year his past 16 years.
Yeah.
He said his arm wasn't sore during training camp, and it showed. And maybe, him coming back for one more year adds fuel of fire. He'll want to prove it. Yep, I still got it. You guys still think I don't have it, but I still got it.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. I think, we're both in agreement that he probably shouldn't have said what he said. But then again, I don't know. As a Vikings fan, go ahead, make the situation worse. That's all I could care less. But at the same time,
Classic foot and mouth kind of comment.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Obviously, if Voldy was here, I say next one, Voldy. But let's go next one, Maddie. So anyway, news out of the Wild organization here in the off season. The Minnesota Wild hire ex-Devils general manager Ray Shero. Shero, do we know?
I think it's Shero. I think it's how you pronounce it.
Shero, so that's how you pronounce it. And they hire a longtime senior advisor to the general manager, Bill Guerin, and they've worked, Guerin worked under him when he was with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He was fired last year by New Jersey midway through his 5th season as general manager for the Devils. Before his time there, he spent 8 years as general manager of the Penguins, overseeing the 2009 Stanley Cup champions. So, Mets and Zoners as well. This is an interesting sign. I think the Wild are trying to go a little bit more all in. Being a senior advisor, I mean that's kind of giving some leeway to Guerin, figuring out what to do in certain situations. So absurd or approve the Wild adding a Ray Shero, and how will he impact the offseason? Mets, what do you think?
I mean, it's not really I wouldn't call it a headline grab, for the Wild, but I mean, it's someone that gives you another voice, another eye out there to look for talent. Him coming from the Devils organization, the last few years, they haven't exactly exceeded expectations. They traded for Tater Hall, that didn't work out. They signed Subban, that didn't work out. There was mistakes made by that organization. Maybe it wasn't all on him, him being in charge. Maybe it was some other people that made those decisions. But, it's not bad having another guy in there that can help make decisions who probably knows a little bit more. I always thought Madonna was an underrated special advisor, and I think he might have played a role with getting some of these guys. But anything to help, I guess, is great. Just as long as egos don't play in part of it, because going kind of reducing your role a little bit after being the head guy. Is going to be a power thing.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be great. Bill Guerin has done a great job with this team. There's obviously some room we can improve on, shoring up our blue line, getting someone that can actually win a face-off for once. That's always key. And, just, again, maybe he's got an eye for seeing talent, and maybe that's why we wanted to grab him.
I think to answer the question, too, is I think it's got my stamp of approval, just because I think it's a guy that Guerin trusts. And obviously he's got experience, so that helps too. And it's not like he's going to be the one making the decisions. I think he'll have some influence, obviously, on some decisions that will be made. Signing dollar bill Kirill, which I think will happen in general. But it's one thing to say that they'll be able to sign Kaprizov and get some other guys, but I think with another guy that has experience and things like that, and they've worked together before, I think only helps the cause in the offseason. And I think he'll impact the offseason to a pretty good amount. I'm not saying it's just all of a sudden we're getting guys left and right, which we could. I don't know, maybe. But I think when you add a guy with some experience and obviously a guy that, they know, it's going to work out well. Fingers crossed, right? So we'll see what happens, but like you said, he didn't have the best success with New Jersey. Obviously, Subban was one of Tater Hall and everything like that. But sometimes you got to take certain risks, and I think Guerin has in some respects too, and it's paid off mostly. But the next thing is what do you do with Parisi, right? So that's kind of another thing to, focus in on as well. So, yeah, it's got my stamp of approval. Let's see how it goes, and if it, I just don't see it going so bad because he was just such a terrible advisor. It's really nothing to where he has to take the heat. It's Guerin that's going to have to take the heat if things go bad. But, it's got my stamp of approval.
Yeah, I agree. It's got my stamp of approval, too. And I don't know. I guess I didn't look too much into Shero. Was he around in the Devil days when Parise was there? Maybe that's a reason. Maybe they'll keep him. I was a firm believer that Parise didn't get the fair shake of the dice this year. I made a comment.
A lot of people agree with you. I mean, yeah.
Too, like the team, like Ryan Carter said it on the SS10 Fitzgerald. You saw the power play go down, and you saw one guy in particular not be on it. And who was it? Zach Parise.
Yeah.
And were there some other guys we let go? I know we tried to go younger, but I mean, Koivu, you could tell, was kind of at the end. I thought Stahl had still a little bit more left to give, especially him with being able to win faceoffs. I thought we should have kept him around for one more year. I thought that was probably one of the biggest free agency signings we had in the last few years was getting him, because he paid off right away. He could score goals. He always parked out front, and that was also one thing we did miss. Because Parise was always the guy that was in front of the net. We didn't get a lot of tip shot goals, I don't think, this year. And it was,
not a
hard
lot.
to remember all the games, too, because you were watching them at 9 o'clock at night when they were on the West Coast.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think, we'll just see what happens, and maybe he has a big influence. Who knows? But I think, things have gone pretty well so far is kind of the main thing with, this team. So, it's, we'll see what happens. Fingers crossed, right? All right. Yeah. But anyway, our next story here is, when Voldy put this in, and obviously, this was before he originally, when he thought he was going to, be here for the show. A lot of MLB talk about a lot of cheating and a lot of putting, better for your grip, putting stuff on your fingers and things like that. Almost kind of like the stick-'em deal in football. But there's been a crackdown. And obviously there's been one player in general, Mets first baseman Pete Alonso, said Wednesday that he disagrees with the MLB's crackdown on pitcher-friendly foreign substances. And Josh Donaldson has definitely talked about it as well. And that the larger issue facing the sport is the league's manipulation of baseballs depending on free agent class, a theory he presented as fact. The biggest concern in the MLB manipulates the baseball year in and year out depending on free agency class or guys being in an advanced part of their arbitration. So Alonso said this, and it's I think we can all agree there's probably definitely is some cheating, but it's MLB's it's a weird deal. It's a weird deal. So Mets, let me ask you this: absurd or approved? The MLB is deliberately doctoring their balls.
I mean, it's proved in the fact that that they're doing it, because they, like, what was it, 2 years ago, and the Bomba squad, hitting 300 home runs. Maybe the MLB is just like, maybe we don't want the Twins leading the league in home runs. It's just not a good look. So we're gonna make the balls not fly as far, because we even heard this going into this year that the MLB was trying to not have as many home runs because for some reason they want to promote offense because that's the biggest attraction, but yet they also want pitching to be on top as well. And then the whole spider tech, which we'll talk about later, but we know that they're doctoring the balls. But I wouldn't quite go. I would say it's more absurd because I don't know if they're doing it because of the arbitration with the free agents. I mean, you look at the free agent class coming up. I think it's Bryant for the Cubs, Seager for the Mariners. Got some big names going up in free agency, which MLB free agency isn't quite what it used to be, just because with all the arbitration, and especially when you have teams do stuff like what the Twins did with with Kirilloff, send him down for an extra year, so you get that 2 more years, or you send him down for a month, so you get 2 more years on his arbitration service time. And then, because that happened the same thing with Bryant, too. I remember when he hit, 10 home runs in spring training, and they sent him down because they wanted 2 more years of his prime at a discount rate. I the MLB either needs to figure out a way to either keep the ball the same, either have it fly out of the ballpark at record pace or keep it in the ballpark, because going back and forth year to year, that's just not a good look. And Manfred is a man full of horrible ideas.
Yeah.
He can't get in his own way with some of these ideas, and it's just, I don't get what they're trying to do. Either, like I said, either keep it an offensive leaning game or defensive. Don't keep going back and forth.
Right. So, I have a lot of opinions about this, and obviously, I feel like since everyone cheats in the MLB, then it is what it is. And obviously, it's sketchy to an extent. But, like you said, Mets, it's one of those things where everyone has an opinion on it, and, the MLB doesn't do a great job of enforcing rules like this and whatnot. But then again, they talk about, the juiced balls, as they're putting in as well. In 2019, there was a huge class of free agent pitchers, and then that's the quote, unquote, the juiced balls. And then 2020 was a strange year with COVID season, but now that we're back to playing in the regular season, not a ton of shortstops or position players that are going to be paid a lot of money, like high caliber players. I mean, yeah, that's not a coincidence. It's something that they do. So, and of course, the league didn't comment on what Alonso said as well. So, to an extent, I get why there's that you want to have grip on the baseball and things like that, but it's something to where it's like it's almost gotten out of control in a way, and maybe it would help the Twins a little bit, but it hasn't.
Anything can help the Twins right now.
Anything could help the Twins right now, but I mean, it's like you said, it's two-parter. I mean, it's absurd in the fact that they can't figure out how to deal with it, I think, is one. And then also not being able to, enforce a lot of these rules. And there's a lot of guys that have gotten away with it. And, I don't think Donaldson's far off on it, but to go at Garrett Cole and then the Yankees and everything like that, I don't know. There's a lot to go with it. And obviously, the next one, we'll move on to the next one since it just goes right into what we're talking about. MLB gets a little sticky, Mets, as Voldy put here. It's too much fun when he does the ARA stories. But, the MLB right now, and obviously this is something that's been talked about, finalizing a memo on rule against use of foreign substances by pitchers. Major League Baseball is putting the final touches. Will be forwarded to teams sometime in the next few days, presenting the coaching staffs and players. The actual order for umpires to enforce the rule might occur a week later, within the range of June 21st, according to sources. So, obviously, Mets, we kind of talked about it before, spider tack and whatnot. So, obviously, Voldy asks, absurd or approve. MLB saying no to foreign substances for pitchers. Mets, what do you think?
Well, I think you have to get your definition of what a foreign substance is. Obviously, Randy Dobnik over the weekend came out and said, well, he didn't pitch so well one night because he had a, fake fingernail put on. And I guess you could consider that a foreign substance because it wasn't natural to his body. There's a lot of talk of, with sunscreen. So basically you're going to tell players that they can't wear sunscreen, that can lead to medical stuff. I'm not saying, that would actually happen. But, there's, with sunscreen, how much of an advantage does it give pitchers?
Yeah.
They've done studies where, you only increase the spin rate by 50 by using sunscreen, but with spider tack, you increase it by 250. I think it's just the revolutions of it. And, obviously spider tack you shouldn't be using. I mean, when you can see that the baseball is not pure white, necessarily, is kind of a sign that it's not, or that somebody's using something. And even if you try to order spider tack, it's out of stock because MLB and the minor leagues, they buy it all up because they use it. And for some pitchers, it does give an advantage. I mean, and for some hitters, they don't mind pitchers using them because if it gives a guy that throws 100 miles an hour a little more control, I think they'd be okay with that rather than hitting them in the body or or in the head. They'd rather have the feeling of knowing that they won't get hit every time. And then you got Tyler Glass now that comes out and says, well, because I wasn't using sunscreen, my arm hurts and I have a partially torn UCL and possibly need Tommy. And the argument is how come players or hitters can use, pine tar and stuff like that because they're not using it to their advantage. In fact, if they were to use pine tar like that, it doesn't, especially higher on the barrel, it doesn't help them at all. It probably causes the ball to hang up in the air a little bit longer instead of hanging out of the park. I think you're going to have a tough time also trying to try to find pitchers that do use sunscreen because it blends into the skin so well or trying to use that. Unless you're Michael Pineda who just puts it on your neck and it's easily seen, when he was pitching for the Yankees. And then to say, 10 games for a starting pitcher, that's 2 starts. That's not really that big of a deal. But that's still 10 more games than the Astros got for cheating. I know that's a big thing, too. How come players are getting suspended more for this than they would be for cheating like that? And I think it wouldn't be as big of a deal. It's been in the rule book for quite a long time. Cole's excuse was that, the older pitchers do it. That means we can do it. But do it at the beginning of the season. Don't do it in the middle of the season. Let them, if you're going to make this call, wait till the end of the season to implement it or wait till the beginning of the season. Don't do it in the middle.
Right. So I think, I think it's absurd because, all these rules that are going to be in place, a lot of the sources that told Buster Olney are saying the enforcement has not yet started because all parties involved want to give pitchers a time to adjust, which is fair. Nobody wants to see suspensions, but it's going to happen if somebody is found with something. Why don't you ask Big Mike Pineda about that as well? But again, I feel like, you want to get an edge over some of these, good hitters like Stanton and you want to win. You want to be successful. I mean, you don't want to be a guy that gets rocked off of, day in and day out. Like, I understand that, but
like the Twins pitching staff?
Yeah, exactly. You're not wrong on that. And it's something that I think we should know by now with the Twins. But again, I think you got to look at it from the perspective of how many guys do it, and if Donaldson has evidence, prove it, show it. I don't see an issue. Why not? He says that Garrett Cole used it. Well, prove it. I think that's kind of the big thing. But, I feel like this has always been talked about, and it's something to where, the MLB and its players need to be on the same page, and like they ever are on the same page. But it's hopefully this doesn't become a huge issue in where a lot of these guys are getting suspended because no one wants to see that. But, it's the MLB, fumbling the football again, or in this case, a baseball. But, yeah, I mean, it's absurd to the fact that they can't, figure out how to deal with this type of situation. But at the same time, if you cheat, you cheat. I mean, ask A-Rod. He's a cheater, so there's that.
Yep.
He can throw that into it as well. So,
and cheaters justice. He gets to own the Timberwolves now.
Yeah, just to mess with me, I think. But anyway, moving on to the NFL. Interesting story, Voldy. This is Voldy's last one here for us for tonight, and then, but this one's interesting to me because Deshaun Watson, apparently Kareem Jackson, former teammate of Deshaun Watson. Apparently, he's talked with Watson, and apparently he says, I got a great relationship with Deshaun. I've been talking with him the past couple of weeks. Man, and, he's been telling me, I was like, Jack, just tell him, that's where I want to be. He's like, I want to be in Denver. I want to be in Denver. Huh. Well, that's interesting. I'm going to give my thoughts in a second here. But, Mets, let me ask you, and obviously the zoners here as well. Absurd or approved, Deshaun Watson wanting to go to Denver?
I think it's a little absurd, and this is my opinion. It seems like Denver's always in on somebody, and they've even said, Denver's always in on somebody. They're like the Twins, but they never pull it out. I look at it as, people said Rodgers is going to go to Denver. Deshaun Watson's going to go to Denver. Didn't Denver have a problem with their front office cutting a guy because he got hurt trying to train for the season off the site?
Yeah.
Training site. That didn't create a lot of good PR.
No, it didn't. No.
And they're saying a lot of guys want to go here. Like, we love the organization. It's like, I would think twice about going to an organization like that. But, and you look at, it's Bridgewater and who's the other
Drew Lock.
quarterback thing? Drew Lock. Do those guys ever get a shot? I mean, it's just because Lock was hurt for a while, and you can't blame. Or it was when they had COVID, they had to use a wide receiver as a quarterback. But I mean, Bridgewater is a capable quarterback. He should at least have a chance. And I don't see the Texans ever trading in their own conference. Just like if Packers were ever to trade Rodgers, he's not going to stay in the NFC. It's a little absurd because, I mean, it's good to have teammates, like former teammates. They're going to try to build you up, try to make you look a lot better. But I just don't think Denver would be the best landing spot for Deshaun because you'd have to give up a lot. Just like with any good quarterback, you have to give up probably multiple first-round draft picks. You're going to give up probably a piece or two of your core. You could say maybe Sutton's going to be a part of it, or Fan's going to be a part of it, or maybe someone on the defense is going to be part of the deal.
Yeah.
You just don't know what is going to be dealt if it does happen.
I feel like Deshaun keeps, and again, I honestly think Deshaun's a fantastic talent at the quarterback position. But what I think people are forgetting, and I think what Kareem Jackson's forgetting too, is that he's still dealing with something right now. I believe it's 22 multiple lawsuits alleging sexual assault, inappropriate behavior. Before Deshaun Watson should say anything, or saying he wants to go to Denver or do this, and that, he still doesn't want to play for the Texans, which, okay. But how about you deal with that first? If there's nothing wrong, I think you need to focus in on that. So Deshaun Watson, before he's wanting to, I want to go to Denver. Tell him I want to go to Denver. Deshaun, you have many women that are saying that you sexually assaulted them. So, how about you handle that first? That's before you even talk about going to Denver. Before you even say, listen, I want to go here, I want to go there. You should start with that first. What your next steps are for that before saying where you want to go. Now, you're not doing yourself any favors because the Texans hold the cards right now. So, there's that to factor in as well. And are we taking Kareem Jackson at his word? Well, apparently. But the Texans canceled their mandatory mini camp, and he would have been fine, a good amount of money. So if I'm Deshaun Watson right now, I would handle the business at hand before you start talking about where you want to go. Right now, you are a Houston Texan, and the league might be coming down on you with some suspension or an exempt list or something like that, because there's a lot to be had right now. And right now, Tyrod Taylor will probably be the starter for them. And David Mills, I don't think, or Davis Mills, I should say, I don't think will, come in. But I think it's absurd. Obviously, would it be a fit to an extent? It would. But he's got other things to worry about right now. So why is he saying, where he wants to go and everything like that? Here's what you want to do, Deshaun. Take care of what's going on right now. And, hell, I don't even know. It doesn't look good for you. I can tell you that much. So before he says anything, if he gets cleared of charges or whatever, but it does not look good for Deshaun Watson. So don't tell me that. Don't tell me that you want to go to Denver when you have other things you need to worry about right now. So that's just my thought on it. So, yeah, I think Mets, to make a long story short, I think it's absurd that he wants to go to Denver just because there's a whole lot of other things going on.
Well, and you're kind of selling yourself short a little bit too. Is Denver that much of a better team than Houston right now? You could make an argument.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah, it's a very good point.
Maybe he just wants a new change of scenery, and he again would be the face of the franchise. He might not always be that if he went someplace else.
He might not always be happy there too. I mean, obviously they have a new GM, and George Patton. He was with the Vikings, and I think they're in the Rodgers conversation, and I think they'd be more focused in on that than having to deal with a guy that's got a ton of issues right now. So,
and again, what are you willing to give up? Like the Houston Texans have been firm in saying they want at least 3 first-rounders for Watson.
Well,
if they're trade.
Well, the thing is I think Houston's just letting that whole situation play out right now, and saying, Deshaun's got to figure out what's going on, and if he's found guilty of all this, and if there's evidence and everything like that, there's a lot of issues that could be coming his way very soon. So there's that to factor in as well for Deshaun Watson. But anyway, that'll do it for Absurd or Approved this week, and that'll actually wrap up the show since we don't have the Shield. There's no Shield shout-outs this week. He is saving them for next week and whatnot. But before we get to... What's that?
Means they'll be good.
Yeah, they are good. They're very good. I already see them right now, but I won't reveal them because we shouldn't do that. But without further ado, Mets and the Zoners... Before we move on, we got some cool stuff for you. We got stickers, okay, guys. We got stickers. They're waiting for you. We got plenty of them. If you want some, come get some. $2, $3, depending on the size of the sticker and things like that. We'll get it to you because why the heck not, as the Curve Doctor likes to say. And then also another thing too. You see what Mets is wearing there, Zoners, a MinneZona Sports Live shirt. We love it. The MinneZona Sports Live shirt that he's wearing right there. $20, $5 shipping. Talk to me.
It's a comfy fit.
It is. 5 out of 5 stars. Talk to me. Talk to Jimbo. Talk to Voldy. Talk to the Curve Doctor. We'll get you set up with a shirt. Then also thanks to National Fleet Graphics, Crown Rental, Tyler Knutson for the stickers. They're fantastic. Then also, Zoners, make sure to check out W2 Performance, the Barbell Nerds podcast with Will Rattel. And... Rattel's doing a fantastic job. He's been posting a lot of videos, and also he's got stickers as well. $2 for these bad boys. Talk to Will Rattel. He'll get you set up. Check out W2 Performance. And then also check out Jack's Junkyard as well, Jack O'Keefe. He has apparel now, so if you want to check out some of his supplies, please feel free to. There's a lot of cool stuff that he has there too. And then also check out Breaking Into the League with Sam Gabrielli and Ryan Martin, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. A lot going on with the NHL, so there's that as well. So check out their podcast too. But
Magic the Wild, we're still keeping in touch with the NFL or in the NHL.
Yeah, it's a good point, Metsy. That's a good point. So we'll see what happens with it. But anyway, Mets, thanks for filling in for Voldy tonight.
Thanks for having me back. It was good to chat again.
Yeah, it's very good to chat with you again, and we'll have you on probably again here soon if who's ever out and things like that. But we'll make sure we'll get you.
Or whoever shows up at the training camp or not.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good point. So, we'll keep going from there, and then obviously keep updated on the whole Rodgas saga, seeing if anything moves along with that. So. We'll keep our eyes and ears out and see what happens. So, but I think that'll do it for episode 68. Zoners, thanks for tuning in. I think we'll be back next week. I don't see why we wouldn't. So, should be fun as always.
As long as the internet works, right?
Yeah, as long as the internet works, and it's knock on wood, it's been going good so far. So let's keep it going. But we'll see what happens. So, but anyway, as always, folks, keep in the zone.
Thank you for watching MinneZona Sports Live. Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. for live show broadcast. And as Voldy likes to say, follow us on all the socials medias.